All right, so I need to take this cross member out so we can build our new one. It sucks, and I don't want to do it. I think I'm going to make Bob do it. It's a 1.5 foot on each side at least of weld on the frame, so there's a ton, and then just do this chintzy cross member. That's the only thing tying the two sides together, and it's just flimsy. I mean, it's extra flimsy now because I cut a bunch of it out. But anyway, so I got to do that, and then we'll design the cross member that's going to replace it, and that's going to house the upper coilover mount. And the bump stops is going to go onto the frame there, so we don't really have to worry about that too much. We probably will have to modify the frame arch because they are a little tall. I have all the dimensions and stuff, but we'll get into designing that here in a little bit. A long bit for me, a little bit for you, because I got a whole bunch of cutting to do. So I'm gonna drop this axle out. I'll put the other wheel on so I can just roll it out of the way. And that way I don't have to fight this thing, and plus get it totally filled up with crap, because there's going to be a lot of cutting going on. I think I'm just going to plasma cut the whole thing off. I'll try to make some relief cuts and break off as much of it as I can. But we'll see. There's not a lot of space above the frame and the body there, so that part is going to be a little challenging to get off cleanly, at least right at the top there. But I think we can do it. I did get the bolts out. They didn't. They came out okay. I sprayed them down, I think 2 days ago with the nuts. The nuts are trapped inside that tube that's welded to the body there. So I was a little worried about that, because sometimes those things can they'll spin on the inside, and you're just you just have to cut the bolt off and deal with it later, which that would have sucked. I really didn't want to get into that, and I don't have to. So luckily they came out. We will replace the bolts with nice new ones, and we'll have to incorporate some sort of a mount for it that'll go to our cross member. But we'll do that. That won't be hard. So anyway, so I'm gonna get going on cutting this out. I'm gonna take this axle out, and next time you see me, that'll be all out and cleaned up. All right, I got my little plasma cutter set up. I'm gonna put you in time lapse, and I'm gonna cut this out. Okay, so those broke off really easy. I was dreading that, and it ended up being not too bad. So they even broke off really clean on top of the frame. So since I can't get up there and grind and stuff, but we didn't leave a big mess up there. So that's a good thing. So now what we're gonna do for the cross member, we're gonna put some 2x3 rec tube going across the frame from one side of the car to the other at about the width that I was pointing to there. But we're gonna have to be low. So then we're gonna have to build arches that will come up, and then we'll obviously have to incorporate a body mount into it somehow. I'm not gonna worry about the body mount right now yet. We're gonna just get the cross pieces in and our arches in, and then we'll figure out what we're gonna do for a body mount. All right, and so I got the tubes in, and I got some gussets on. Here I'm pointing to me thinking about putting a gusset in up top, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm voice-overing this because I just rambled on like crazy on it. And anyway, I put the gussets up about 1/2 inch from the corner, and that's kind of the happy medium between being too rigid, being right on the corner, and being too flimsy by being right in the middle. And so that's why I just kind of chose 1/2 inch there, and that should be a nice spot to kind of distribute the forces down the frame without trying to be too rigid and causing it to crack at the end of the gusset there. So now we'll move on to getting the arches designed and welded up. Okay, here I got one welded. This is what it looks like. So that 2x3, the tubes that are in there will be there and there. and then the tabs for the coilover are coming out this way, and then the bolt goes forward and backward on the car, and that way as the suspension articulates, the coilover has to swing in and out quite a bit. So that's why you put the bolt forward and backward on the car, because as the suspension goes up and down, nothing really changes, and not very much. So the spherical in the coilover can handle that, but as far as articulation, it really swings. So you don't want to rely on that coil or the spherical in it to absorb all that. So that's what it's going to look like. So that this is like the floor of the car, and that's the one tube, and that's the other tube. I full pin welded it. I full pinned it up top and ground it. This is just MIG. I didn't TIG weld it or anything. And then so I'm gonna build the other one, and then I'll get them in there. I built them so they're exact, so they're probably gonna be extremely tight. In there, I may have to grind them a little bit to get them in, because they're exactly 13 3/4 or 13 1/2. I mean, which is what those things are. So it is exactly 13 1/2. Okay, so one thing I noticed before we get these things in there, and I was just going to show you. So I noticed when I took this off that the body mount bolts were both of them were all the way to the left as I'm looking from the back of the car. And then I started looking at the car, and like you'll see that the inner wheel well is about flush with the frame on this side. But if we go to this side, it's in about 1/2 inch. So just off looking at that, and then I measured it out to the wheel well. So when I checked articulation and it was going to clear, I checked it, of course, on the side where the body is out farther. This is just typical, one of those scratch your head moments. Do I want everything to line up with the body or the frame? And technically you want it with the frame, but it's going to look kind of funny if it's not. So we may try to shift this body on this frame back. I did notice all the bolts, everything seems to be shifted, like the whole car seems to be shifted that one way. So when I was looking down that gap, and it's tighter on the other side and looser on this side, and this one actually is kind of like a wedge. So I think the front's pretty centered, and it's kind of off in the back. So we're gonna look into that. I might spray all the bolts tonight before I call it quits, and then we'll loosen them all. It's not that hard to shift the bodies on them. It's pretty easy. And the only problem is if we go out and play with this thing pretty hard, the body's gonna end up where it ends up. Every time you hit something kind of hard and get the momentum going, it will shift. That's when everything's like this. The body can shift on it. See, and you can see the rest ring. That's where it was sitting before. So everything is shifted to the left. So I'm gonna try. We'll put these in, but I'm just not gonna count on. I'm not gonna count on the location of this. We'll go off the frame with our mount, so that basically we're going to put it back so it's back how it was, but then we'll loosen these and all the body mount bolts, and we'll actually try to shift the body back on the frame and get it centered back up again. I keep hitting my head while I'm talking, so that's why I'm stuttering. So anyway, so that's that. I'm going to get going on getting these our cross tubes in. I got them in. I got them where I want them. They're in a good spot. I got plenty of space for the coilover. The coilover is going to mount about a little over 2 inches out, as high as we can get it, and then it's gonna be coming out at about 5-degree angle. The frame nicely has this swoop already in it for extra clearance, so that'll be good. The bump stop is going to be on the towards the outside of the frame. If it is in the frame, it may be in the frame just a little bit. We might have to notch it, but we'll look at all that stuff next week and get that going. I have all the dimensions of that stuff, and then we just have to figure out exactly where the rear end's going to be, where we want bottomed out to be, and all that stuff. So we got quite a bit of design work to do next week. So I'll get this all finished up this week. We'll do that sheet metal next week, and then we're going to start designing like all our mounts and brackets and all that stuff, and where our bump stop's going to be, and all that fun stuff. So probably have to take these down now. I'll have to figure out another way of hanging the rear end, because those are going to be in our way next week. Okay, so here's my body mount. I painted it so that it will we won't be able to get to that surface once I have this thing all welded in there. So without taking the body off, so I painted it and I painted the car where it goes. So I just kind of painted where we wouldn't be able to get to it because I still have to weld right here. So anyway, so that's that. It's factory body mount size. It's way heavier duty than it needs to be, but you know, it is what it is. It's at least we won't have to worry about it breaking. So I got our arches in. And I got my ears designed. They're upstairs. They're going to be a little more complicated than just a normal ear because we have to run our ears really, really wide. Even though the top of the coilover is only 1.5 inches thick, we have to run the ears really wide because the body of the shock comes really quickly to where it mounts on, and because they're kind of meant to be mounted from the top, not from the side. But obviously, without cutting the hole in the floor, we don't have an option of mounting it from the top. So we're gonna have to run it really wide, and then our brackets will have tubes welded into them that will be machined 5/8 through, so that where it's actually touching the spherical on the top of the shock will be the right 1.5 inches, but the ears themselves will be really wide, if that makes sense. I'll draw a little picture and put it up. But anyway, so I cleaned that up there and I painted it. The body's still shifted, so when we put this in, we'll have to put that back where it was, like that. And then once we get this car down and done, we might come along on it and loosen everything up and try to shift it on the frame so that's back centered again. So yeah, so that's that. There's going to be probably a gusset here. We'll see. I might not do it, but I might put one here. They're not very tall, so there's not like a ton of... the strut's not going to have a ton of pressure pushing it one way or the other, but I am going to put a brace across, like a strut tower brace across from one to the other. That way, it'll keep them pretty rigid. It'll kind of box it all in. And that should be good enough. So that's just going to be like an 1.5 inch square tube or something. It doesn't have to be very heavy. That'll be in compression. And because the coilovers are coming in at an angle, so they're going to be trying to push those in. And if we tie them together, they'll just work together, and they'll be that much stronger. So yeah. So I'm going to cut that tube, and then hopefully my paint will dry enough, and we can weld those body mounts on. I'm going to tighten those all the way. I'll put them on there, and I'll tighten them all the way up, so that we're not pulling the car down to the body mount before we weld it on. We don't want to pull the car down to it. So I'm going to have everything all tight before we weld it on there, since the body's sitting where it needs to be sitting. So we'll tighten everything up, and then we'll weld it on. All right, I found a round tube instead of a square one, so that worked out good. 0.952 inch is what that ended up being, which is perfect for that brace there. That it doesn't need to be super heavy. So body mounts are on. Everything worked out really good. I got it all so that we're ready to move on. Next week we'll work on or later this week, I guess, we'll work on getting those bump stops in there. Here's the ear, the drawing of the ear. I told you I'd show you that's the upper coilover mount with a big hole there for a boss, and you'll see how that all plays out next week. For my wife's birthday, we made a dinosaur. So I had all those parts cut out, so we got to kind of do a puzzle and put it together. That was really fun. It turned out really cool. It's really, really fun thing to do. Easy. If you're learning to weld, it's a perfect little project for you to do. Make something you can be proud of. All in all, that thing cost about $300. It really wasn't too bad. So anyway, our budget sheet, budget-wise, it didn't change, just hours. So we're up to 180 hours. I've been working a lot on the tow truck. And that'll be a video here coming up soon. Really, really cool transition. We did a lot of cool stuff with the things getting wrapped. I tore it all the way down. We got it wrapped, and we're putting it back together right now. So that's really cool. So that video will be coming out later this week. So anyway, stay tuned. Check it out. It's going to be a cool week with that tow truck. I'm excited to get that thing done. So thanks for watching. Stay safe.